Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the West family case. The mysterious demise of a glamorous housewife. Have you ever wondered what lies beneath the facade of a seemingly perfect family? Psychologists claim that the more people try to portray an impeccable, happy, and prosperous family life, the bigger the underlying relationship issues typically are. Such individuals are deeply concerned with societal perceptions, constantly seeking approval and validation. Inside these perfect family units, resentments can accumulate over the years, often erupting in unexpected and drastic ways. The West family appeared to everyone as a strong, happy, and well-off unit, and they probably were until they weren't. The couple had been married for 14.5 years, raising a daughter together, and never once gave anyone reason to suspect any difficulties in their marriage. That was until the early morning of January 13th, 2018, when 42-year-old Mrs. West was found deceased near her own home. This convoluted story raised more questions than answers. The incident seemed like both a bizarre accident and a calculated homicide. Despite the case being closed and the convicted serving their sentence, many have sided with the alleged perpetrator rather than the deceased victim. To understand why, we need to delve into the West family's history from the beginning and unravel the rumors about the double life of the late housewife that had been circulating for years. Who was Caitlin West? Caitlin Dawn West, Mae Martin, was born on February 15, 1975, in the quaint town of Davie, Florida, the only child of Nancy and Jonathan Martin. She grew up in a humble and modest family environment. As a child, she yearned for a younger sibling, a dream unfulfilled due to her mother's health issues. Perhaps this is why Caitlin was overly attached to dolls, treating them like living beings, singing to them, and cradling them. In school, Caitlin was known for her beauty and sociability, actively participating in sports and dance. However, during her teenage years, signs of bipolar affective disorder began to emerge, characterized by depression and anxiety alternating with periods of hyperthymia, persistently elevated mood, and motor agitation. Unfortunately, her parents didn't notice her condition until later. By then, Caitlin had turned to alcohol to manage her emotions. It was only during treatment for alcoholism that the root cause of her problems was identified. By her 20s, Caitlin overcame alcohol dependency, but managing her bipolar disorder was more challenging, necessitating several potent medications that caused complex drug interactions and side effects. Eventually, the disorder was brought under control, although she had to continue medication until her untimely death. Caitlin longed for marriage, a family, and children, but her personal life was fraught with difficulties, possibly due to her psychological disorder and alcohol issues. Yet, the attractive blonde had many admirers, being the life of the party and always enjoying the spotlight. In her youth, Caitlin aspired to model, attending castings and experimenting with different looks. She was particularly fascinated by the iconic 50s movie star and style symbol Marilyn Monroe. She watched Monroe's films repeatedly, collected posters, and emulated her style and image. It's worth noting that Caitlin bore a certain resemblance to her idol, a fact she proudly capitalized on and cherished. Though Caitlin's dream of becoming a famous model didn't materialize, her photos were frequently published in local magazines, earning her some recognition, a fan base, and occasional acknowledgement on the streets of her hometown. At 28, she finally met the man she would start a family with. Who was William West? William Jeffrey West, known mostly by his middle name, was born in 1970 in Alabama into a typical family. From an early age, he dreamt of a career in the military or law enforcement. A diligent student and an active sports enthusiast, he was robust, fit, and incredibly focused. In the early 1990s, William joined the U.S. military, serving initially as a military police officer. His dedication led him to become a military recruiter responsible for enlisting individuals into the Army and Navy. Ultimately, he rose to head a recruitment division. In total, William devoted 2 decades of his life to military service. Simultaneously with his military career, William chose to pursue higher education. He earned a bachelor's degree in public relations from the University of South Carolina. He continued his studies in criminal justice and disaster and emergency management, eventually earning a master's degree. William was intelligent, composed, and goal-oriented, yet modest and somewhat introverted. He preferred quiet gatherings over loud parties and generally shunned the spotlight. He married young and was a father to 2 children, known as a devoted family man and a responsible parent. Upon retiring from the military, William became a corporal in the police department of a university town. He was entrusted with ensuring the safety of the campus community, approaching his duties with seriousness and responsibility. Although he was issued a service firearm, he never had to use it throughout his career. The odd but happy couple, Caitlin and Jeffrey. Caitlin and Jeffrey's paths crossed in the mid-2000s. At the time, Jeffrey, still serving in the military, was married to his first wife. It seemed unlikely that the stern, quiet military man had anything in common with the flamboyant, bold, attention-loving blonde, yet they felt an instant mutual attraction. Their 5-year age gap, Jeffrey's existing marriage, and Caitlin's periodic struggles with alcohol, which she continually fought, were not deterrents to their relationship. Jeffrey soon filed for divorce to be with his new love, and in less than 5 months of meeting, they surprisingly tied the knot in a Las Vegas chapel. In 2005, the couple welcomed their only child together, a daughter named Lola. They settled in the quiet town of Sierra, Alabama, Jeffrey's home state, in a custom-built cozy home. Caitlin personally designed their bedroom, adorning it with portraits of her idol, Marilyn Monroe. Neighbors spoke highly of them, the Wests, describing them as a happy couple despite being complete opposites. Caitlin always strived to look stunning and attractive with bold makeup, stylish hair, and Barbie-like outfits. She thrived on catching people's glances and loved compliments, always appearing cheerful and smiling. Jeffrey, in contrast, seemed overshadowed by her presence, appearing reserved, serious, and highly disciplined, a reflection of his long military career. The double life of a blonde, from homemaker to kitty cat. Despite her efforts and striking looks, Caitlin couldn't carve out a successful modeling career. After marriage and the birth of her daughter, she focused on creating a cozy home and raising her child. Yet, the mundane life of a homemaker wasn't enough. She craved attention and recognition. With the rise of social media in the late 2000s, she began actively posting pictures online. Initially, these were harmless Barbie or Marilyn Monroe-themed photos, but gradually, they became more provocative and daring. Close sources say her husband not only didn't mind her new hobby, but often played the role of her personal photographer. It seemed harmless and eventually became a lucrative venture for Caitlin through paid subscriptions. They bought a selection of ready-made seafood dishes from a popular local restaurant, a bottle of fine brandy and absinthe from the supermarket, along with aromatic candles Caitlin picked from a nearby store to set a romantic mood. Captured on surveillance cameras at each location, they appeared happy and carefree, smiling and joking with no hint of the impending tragedy. Returning home with their purchases, the couple enjoyed their dinner and indulged in the alcoholic beverages. Caitlin, who had intermittently battled alcohol dependency, transformed under its influence into her online alter ego, Kitty Cat. She requested Jeff conduct a hot photo session, first in lingerie and then without any clothes. Jeff, not opposed, took several revealing shots which were posted on Caitlin's private OnlyFans profile by around 1 a.m. However, the romantic evening that was supposed to end in a passionate night soon turned into a nightmare, leading to a tragic outcome. Body on the road. Early on the morning of January 13th, around 5:00 a.m., a young neighbor of the Wests was on her way to work. The sun hadn't risen yet, but it was light enough outside. As she passed the Wests' house, something caught her eye, but it took her a moment to realize what it was. Slowing down, she soon noticed an almost fully unclothed woman lying motionless on the road. She also thought she saw someone standing on the doorstep of the house, who quickly vanished into the shadows upon noticing her. During questioning, she couldn't definitively say whether this person entered the house or ran off down the street. Startled and unsure of what to do, the young woman hesitated to approach the body. She returned home, informed her parents, and they collectively called emergency services to report the grim discovery. At the operator's request, while waiting for help to arrive, they reluctantly approached the woman on the ground, recognized as Mrs. West, and checked for a pulse. Tragically, there was none. Her body was cold and already showing signs of rigor mortis. Caitlin was found face down, her body mostly on the sidewalk, wearing only a bright pink bra top. A pool of blood had formed under her head, and nearby was a bottle of absinthe, some of its contents spilled on the road with blood stains on the bottle. A short distance away lay her smashed smartphone. Since it was a quiet residential area, there were no other witnesses during the night. Thus, the time gap between the last sighting of the West's car around 8:30 p.m. and 5:00 a.m., when the neighbor discovered Caitlin's lifeless body, remains a mystery, likely witnessed only by her husband. What's Mr. West hiding? Detective Michael Melhoff, one of the first to arrive at the scene, headed to the house where the woman's body was found. A man answered the door, appearing somewhat anxious but claiming ignorance of the situation. When asked about his wife's whereabouts, he said he had just woken up and didn't find her in bed. The detective then asked him to step outside, informing him that a woman's body, identified by neighbors as Caitlin West, was found near the house. The man, throwing on a jacket, followed the officer and confirmed that the deceased was indeed his wife. However, Jeff's reaction was unusually calm. He did not rush to the body with tears or screams. When questioned about his whereabouts and activities during the night, Mr. George West stated he had slept soundly, as they had been drinking the previous evening. Asked what he thought had happened, he merely shrugged, suggesting it might have been an unfortunate accident. Mr. West also shared that his wife suffered from bipolar affective disorder, requiring medication, and struggled with alcohol, behaving erratically when intoxicated. He mentioned that she would sometimes jump on their backyard trampoline, occasionally missing it and injuring herself. A search of the house revealed no signs of a struggle or violence. 2 plates with leftover food, 2 glasses, and a half-empty brandy bottle were on the kitchen table. Her high heels, captured in her last pictures, lay under the table, and underwear matching the bra she was wearing when found was on the floor. However, several blood-stained napkins in the trash and an open bottle of cleaner raised questions. That day, Jeffrey was taken into custody as the main and sole suspect in the case. Chronology of events. Describing the last evening spent with his wife, Jeffrey noted that she drank heavily, which he greatly disliked. After the revealing photo session, he hoped they would move to the bedroom for a more intimate setting. He stepped away to shower for a few minutes and returned to find his wife still sitting at the table, drinking absinthe straight from the bottle and texting someone on her phone. Jeff was angered by this, and his requests to put away the gadget were ignored by Caitlin. He tried to snatch the phone from her hands, leading to a minor scuffle during which he accidentally elbowed his wife's face, causing a few drops of blood to appear from her nose. According to him, this was the blood the police found on the discarded napkins. Mr. West eventually took the phone from his wife and, opening the door, hurled it into the darkness. He claimed that after this, he turned around and went to bed, convinced that his spouse would soon calm down and join him. He allegedly remained unaware of how events unfolded further until the police knocked on his door asking about Caitlin. He speculated that his wife might have gone outside to find her phone, which she rarely parted with, taking the absinthe bottle with her. Take the bottle with her to finish it, he also suggested, that she might have fallen, hit her head on the bottle, lost consciousness, and froze to death, or that someone might have attacked her. Mr. West couldn't explain why Mrs. West was without the bottom part of her enticing pink lingerie set, or why she went to look for her phone in just a bra without putting on any outerwear hanging near the entrance. He attributed such behavior to alcohol intoxication. The suspect's story seemed suspicious and inconsistent. He claimed to be too intoxicated to remember certain details, leaving the investigation to piece together the sequence of events. The evidence was scarce, and there were no witnesses. The autopsy determined that the cause of death for the 42-year-old woman was blunt force trauma to the head, likely inflicted with the absinthe bottle found nearby, compounded by hypothermia. At the time of the incident, her blood alcohol level exceeded 2.5 per ml, indicative of severe intoxication with impaired coordination and a high risk of losing consciousness. At first glance, everything seemed to align. Caitlin, heavily intoxicated, ventured outside searching for her phone, taking along the unfinished bottle of absinthe. She likely lost her balance, possibly while reaching for her gadget, fell, hit her head on the bottle, lost consciousness, and died from the injury and exposure. The bottle with blood traces lay near her head, and the smartphone the reason she left the house was found nearby. However, the investigation found this scenario too simplistic and staged. Experts confirmed the head injury was inflicted with a bottle beside the body. However, forensic analysis suggested that if she had fallen by herself, the bottle would likely have rolled away, not remained parallel to her head. Both Caitlin's and her husband's fingerprints were found on the bottle, along with some smudged prints that couldn't be identified. The blood-stained napkins and the open bottle of household cleaner discovered in the house led investigators to a different conclusion. Their theory, later presented as the primary and only plausible one in court, suggested the couple argued over Caitlin's preoccupation with her subscribers. In a fit of anger, Jeff struck her with the bottle, causing a fatal injury. Panicking, he tried to stage an accidental fall, cleaning the blood in the house but failing to dispose of the evidence. Partially supporting this theory was the fitness app on Jeff's phone, which tracked his steps. According to the app, he was active around the house until midnight and again early in the morning before the police arrived, contradicting his claim of being asleep. The police speculated that he was attempting to conceal evidence during these times. A third person involved, the neighbor who discovered the body, recalled during questioning that she saw a male silhouette on the doorstep of the house who quickly left in an unknown direction. She couldn't confidently assert whether it was Mr. West or someone else in the dim early dawn light. She also couldn't discern whether this person entered the house or not. This information intrigued the investigators. Considering the deceased's popularity online, she had many male admirers who paid to view the revealing photos of Kitty Cat. Thus, a theory emerged suggesting the existence of an obsessed follower among her subscribers. Perhaps someone sought a personal encounter with Caitlin and tracked her down, hoping for a closer acquaintance. The middle-aged homemaker did often receive messages from various men, sometimes with inappropriate proposals, but she maintained her distance. No explicit threats or harassment were found in the communications. A few particularly persistent fans, living in other states with solid alibis, were quickly ruled out as suspects. Nonetheless, footprints were found on the doorstep not belonging to the homeowners. These prints vanished on the lawn, and their origin remained a mystery. Could Mr. West have harmed his wife? Neighbors, friends, and relatives described the couple as happy and thriving. Jeffrey was aware of his wife's unique online activities, but treated them as harmless fun. Meanwhile, their social circle was oblivious to Caitlin's alter ego, Kitty Cat, just as most of her followers had no idea of her real-life identity. When asked if he had ever been violent towards his wife, Jeffrey firmly denied it, stating he loved her too much to ever harm her. However, arguments had become a frequent occurrence in their household. A particularly telling text exchange, dated January 12th, was found on their phones where the couple argued heatedly. Caitlin criticized Jeffrey for not matching her in vivacity and temperament, even suggesting they might be incompatible. Jeffrey remained the prime suspect, with forensic evidence and gathered details only indirectly implying his guilt. Notably, following his arrest, not only his parents, but also his daughter and in-laws rallied in his defense, firmly convinced of his innocence and asserting he could never hurt his wife. After Jeffrey West's arrest, he was unable to afford the $500,000 bail set, which meant he had to stay in custody until his trial. This wait stretched almost 3 years. He was offered a plea deal admitting guilt in his wife's demise in exchange for a reduced sentence. However, Jeffrey adamantly refused, maintaining his innocence. The trial, which commenced in November 2020, attracted significant media attention, in part due to Caitlin's online notoriety. This publicity put considerable pressure on the judges and jurors. By this time, the possibility of a third-party involvement in that fateful night's events was no longer considered. The prosecution argued that all evidence pointed to Mr. West. They believed in a fit of jealousy and under the influence of alcohol, he struck his wife with a bottle, causing fatal injuries. In a panic, they suggested he staged the scene to mimic an accident, removing evidence from inside the house. Jeffrey's defense team contended that Caitlin's death was indeed accidental, citing her extremely high blood alcohol levels as a factor affecting her balance and coordination. In a heartfelt testimony, Caitlin's mother supported her son-in-law. She described her daughter as eccentric, but insisted Jeffrey loved her unconditionally and would never harm her. She also appealed to the court to consider their granddaughter, Lola, who had lost her mother and stood to lose her father. On January 11, 2021, the jury returned a guilty verdict for involuntary manslaughter. Jeffrey was sentenced to the maximum of 13 years, considering time already served. Notably, had he accepted the plea deal initially offered, he might have already been free. All appeals by Jeffrey and his lawyers have so far been unsuccessful. Thanks for watching. Guys, subscribe to the channel and also don't forget to click the bell. There are many shocking stories ahead.